A very good morning to all of you. I welcome you all to Ansarkari. So let's start with today's analysis of the Hindu newspaper first. Then we'll be taking up Indian Express and the Financial Express. So we'll be looking into topics like that Supreme Court is going to set up a bench to hear the hijab case, and then according to experts, they feel that Kuno Park is insufficient for 20 cheetahs, and are the dark days back in Punjab or not? So select central staff, they can opt for the old pension scheme, and government allows one-time option for those who apply for jobs which were advertised before December 2003, and the day national pension scheme was notified, but joined service in 2004 when the NPS came into effect. So these persons, if they have applied, they can enjoy the benefits. So looking at the features of the old versus the new, so a look at the difference between them. So here it is for the old pension scheme, here it is the national pension scheme. So the old pension scheme, it guarantees a lifelong income post-retirement, whereas NPS is a participatory scheme where employees contribute to their pension corpus from their salaries with matching contribution from the government. Then under the old system, government bears the expenditure incurred on the pension, and under NPS, the funds are invested in earmarked investment schemes through the pension fund managers. Thirdly, the third point between these is under the old pension scheme, under the scheme, a monthly payment is assured where the amount is equivalent to 50% of the last drawn salary. And under the NPS system, on retirement, 60% of the corpus, which is tax free, is withdrawn, while the remaining 40% it still remains invested in annuities, which is taxed. So that's how the NPS system is going to work and include its features. So as rumors set off panic, Tamil Nadu government seeks to pacify the migrants. So yesterday also we talked about the migrant population and the challenges they have to face in state like Maharashtra, which is major producer of sugarcane. So in case of migrants, it becomes important for us to know everything that we have, be it law or constitution. We have article or the Supreme Court judgments or committees, if there are any. So few states are opting for the old pension scheme and some are obviously with the NPS. So Chief Justice of India says that we'll be creating a bench to hear the Karnataka hijab ban case. Supreme Court is likely to list the case after the holy vacations, and students have to appear for the examinations on 9th March, where the top court will be working only from 13th of March. So hijab is not allowed in the examination centers. And apart from this, like the students feel that they've already lost 1 year, and though they are private college students, the exams they are held in government institutions and allow them to take part in the examination. So why are basically they not being allowed to take their exams? This is what Chief Justice asked. Because they are wearing headscarves. That was the reply of Mr. Persad. So, having a look at the split verdict, the Supreme Court bench of Justice Hemant Gupta and Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia, they had delivered a split verdict in October last year on whether or not the students had a fundamental right to wear hijab in government institutions or not. So, in October's judgment, Justice Gupta had upheld that the Karnataka's prohibitive government order saying apparent symbols of the religious belief cannot be worn to secular schools maintained from the state funds. So this was the verdict, but the final verdict remains, and we'll see what is going to be the final thing. So Panchayati Raj cannot be a substitute for the assemblies. It cannot be a substitute for the assemblies. So obviously, Panchayati Raj, they are working more closer towards the ground level governance, and assemblies, they are at the state level. So obviously there is some gap between these two. So Panchayati Raj obviously cannot substitute for the state assemblies, and so, having a look at the political situation in Nepal, since it is India's neighbor, so it becomes important for us to be aware about what is going on in Nepal's politics. So, the coalition politics in Nepal increasingly resembles the game of musical chairs, and that is true in Kathmandu too. It is the same cast of characters who've been taking turns for nearly 2 decades. So, like, obviously, it's like different people, they are getting elected, but it is the same bunch of people who are getting re-elected, we can say. So the tragedy is that scant attention is being paid to the critical issues, which includes unemployment, national indebtedness, and then development challenges. So, like, obviously, the personalities or the so-called representatives of people, they are focusing more upon their own vested interests. They are trying to get the power, and there's less focus upon much important national issues. So the coalition, it collapses again. So the last coalition government, which was formed in December 2022 after the elections last November, it has lasted only 2 months. So it was stitched together by UML leader KP Sharma Oli with the idea of breaking away the mouse by promising the prime ministership to their leader Pushpa Kamal Del, who is known as Prachand also. So Mr. Prachand had formed an alliance with Mr. Oli in 2018 that broke down in 2020. And again, after a series of decisions by Mr. Oli seeking to marginalize Prachanda and other senior leaders. So later, Prachanda and the Madhav Nepal-led breakaway faction of the UML, they rechristened as CPN, which is Unified Socialist. They joined with the Nepali Congress and formed an electoral alliance in 2022. So the Nepali Congress, it emerged as the largest party with 89 seats, and the strength of their house is 275. So on the mouse, they were a distant third with 32. So power sharing talks collapsed between Prachanda insisted on becoming prime minister first, and knowing Prachanda's weakness, Mr. Oli made him an offer he could not refuse. So on December 26, Mr. Prachanda, he was sworn in as the Prime Minister of Nepal, and in return, he assured support to the UML for the post of House Speaker and the President. So this was the new alliance between them. However, we see that it lasted only for 2 months. And as far as Kathmandu is concerned, India must focus on the connectivity and development as a good neighborhood first policy. So focusing upon connectivity and development as a good neighborhood first policy is what can be India's focus as far as Nepal is concerned. And talking about the presidential elections, so the Election Commission has announced that presidential elections will be held on 9th of March, followed by elections for the vice president on 17th March. So there are going to be now presidential elections also. And since the code of conduct will be in effect till 19 March, no overt political activities is possible. And that's true even in case of India. And given that Mr. Prachanda is now heading a minority government with 16 vacant cabinet positions, power sharing talks will again they will gain momentum, though the final outcome will remain a matter of speculation. So let's see how things will be there in Nepal in case of presidential elections. And talking about the foreign hand, the foreign help to Nepal. So since 2008, when Nepal was declared a republic, the game of political musical chairs has been a regular phenomenon in the polity of Nepal. And in 15 years, Nepal has had three NC prime ministers, which included, you can have a look at their name. There were two Maoist prime ministers and three UML prime ministers, and a chief justice as caretaker prime minister in 2013. So it is the resulting disenchantment of the electorate that led to new political forces in 2022 elections. And normally it is during these rounds of musical chairs that Nepali politicians they start wearing their nationalist colors by looking for the convenient scapegoat of the foreign hand. So while India has often been blamed for the political situation in Nepal, China has played a visible hand in seeking to keep a united communist front, but it has failed to find a compromise between Mr. Oli's egoistical tendencies and Prachanda's opportunistic impulses. So obviously it would be beneficial for China if there is a communist party government in Nepal, and in recent years India has retrieved some of the lost ground by focusing on the project implementation, such as the Jayanagar Bardibus Railway, and then we have the Motihari Amlekhiganj oil pipeline. So this is important from the perspective of India, and power export from Nepal has also picked up. So there was an agreement on this also. We have the Muzaffarpur, the Klebar line, and after that, meanwhile, we see some of the high profile infrastructure projects by China have generated concerns about their economic viability and the long term debt implications on Nepal's economy. So, as a good neighborhood first policy for India, the focus should be on connectivity and development while letting the Nepali politicians continue with their game of musical chairs. So, our focus shouldn't be there like obviously our interests do not lie in their political situation. However, it should be stable, but the main thing is connectivity and development and ensuring that projects they are implemented on a time-based manner. So yesterday we saw that Supreme Court basically told that a group of people basically that would be comprising Chief Justice of India, the Prime Minister and leader of opposition to elect the election commissioner. So again, this article is focusing upon that thing. So court verdict on manner of choosing the poll panel, it is a boost to its independence. So earlier the power was basically with the members of the Election Commission of India, and earlier basically the power was with the executive. So it is basically now a major boost to the independence of the election watchdog, because now the power is not just centralized with the executive, we can say it is being divided, and a committee has been formed that would be appointing the election commissioner and the chief election commissioner also. So a three-member committee, as I just told you, would be comprising Prime Minister, the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha, and Chief Justice of India. So they will be choosing the appointees, and as a constitutional body vested with the plenary powers of superintendence, direction, and control over the elections, Election Commission of India is a very vital important of the republic that requires functional freedom and constitutional protection to ensure free and fair elections. And Article 324 says the president should appoint the chief election commissioner and the commissioners, the election commissioners, subject to any law made in that behalf by the parliament. However, successive regimes, they have failed to enact a law regarding the same. And so Justice K.M. Joseph, who has authored the main verdict, he has based the court's decision on the inertia of the legislature and the perceived vacuum in the absence of a law. So that's when the judiciary stepped in, because there was no visible sign on the part of the legislature on this. And so the government's argument that the existing system, it was working well and there was no vacuum, as quite weak, as admittedly the convention now is that the prime minister chooses a name from among a database of the high-ranking civil servants and advises the president to make the appointment. So this is the current convention that was being followed, but it was believed that it might impact the independent functioning of the Election Commission of India. And on its part, the government will be well advised to enact a law regarding the same that is in tune with the spirit of the court's emphasis on the Election Commission of India's independence. So clean technology is the next big thing in rural India. So basically, it is starting with a case study. So basically, we'll jump on to the thing that a recent Council on Energy, Environment, Water study that it has shown that out of 13,000 early adopters of clean technology livelihood appliances, more than 80% of them are women. So DRE power technologies provide an additional advantage to the women farmers and micro entrepreneurs by enhancing their income opportunities through mechanization. And they also free women from several gender assigned manual activities that are laborious. So DRE is the distributed renewable energy technologies. So that includes solar refrigerators to silk reeling machines and biomass-based cold storage to bulk the milk chiller. So these are some of the examples of the distributed renewable energy technology that is being leveraged by women, specifically in the rural areas. So clean energy solutions, they are transforming women's livelihoods at the grassroots, but they need to be scaled up. So there are some of the key steps that are being suggested by this article from reaching the rural women as part of the Powering Livelihoods initiative. First, we need to leverage the experience of early women adopters because of their novelty and high starting price. These technology and these appliances, they are perceived as high risk purchases, especially by the women users with a relatively lower risk appetite due to the socioeconomic reasons. And there's an example also. So secondly is organize the hyper local events and demos of these appliances. So people want to touch and see a high tech, high ticket size product before believing in it, in its ability and the promised benefits from it, especially when it comes to women who historically have limited access to the new information. So we can organize events and demos of these appliances. Thirdly is enable easy finance to purchase these products. So limited avenues to avail the financing for these clean technology products remains a bottleneck. And fourth is support the backwards and the forward market linkages. So only technology provision is not enough in all the cases. Many rural products, they have the larger market potential. Thus, finding and connecting the producers to the consumption hubs in urban areas, that is equally important to generate higher incomes. And fifth is enable policy convergence. So no private sector entity has the kind of reach and scale the government institutions have. So leveraging their reach is imperative to exponentially scale up these appliances. And we have multiple ministries who are working towards promoting livelihoods for women from state rural livelihood mission, horticulture and medium enterprises, horticulture and agriculture departments, MSME, then we have the Ministry of Textiles. So they should embrace clean energy solutions to further their respective programs and the outcomes. So much like it takes a village to raise a child, scaling the impact of clean energy solutions. That this is the key word. Scaling the impact of clean energy solutions on women's livelihoods needs a village of policymakers, investors, financiers, technology promoters, and other ecosystem enablers to get the real results. And only then can we truly unlock the potential of the rural woman and the clean technologies simultaneously. So in Punjab, you can see the person holding the mic. He's Amritpal Singh, who's seen and who's said that he dressed like Bhindra wale. So Waris Punjab, they had Amritpal Singh. So he had this type of body which is called Waris Punjab. And you can see people holding guns and weapons with them. So his supporters, you can see at the Ajnala police station. So this was a recent violent incident which we saw. And they were demanding the release of Amritpal's close associate, Lovepreet Singh, who's alias Tufan Singh, in an alleged kidnapping and theft case. So that's how basically they were demanding the release of this person. So we are seeing that the fear of return of dark days back in Punjab. So here you should be knowing about the history of all the events, be it Operation Blue Star and how Bhindrawale basically was driving violent activities in Punjab during 1980s. So terror and insecurity have gripped Punjab after an armed mob, which was led by radical preacher Amritpal Singh, laid siege to a police station in Ajnala on 23rd Feb and got their demand fulfilled. So they were successful in getting that person released. And while the people believe that there is no widespread pro Khalistan sentiment, they perceive a breakdown of law and order in the state and demand immediate action against the anti-social elements from the Punjab government. So what happened cannot be justified. If the government is really strong, not even a leaf can move. And these are the beliefs of the people. So if the protesters were carrying the Guru Granth Sahib, what was the intelligence doing? And it was a total collapse of the intelligence machinery in the state. At a lecture in the University of Cambridge, Congress leader says that he was snooped upon using Pegasus spyware and dissent was being curtailed. So he says that democracy is under attack and opposition leaders, they are being spied on. So I've been called by intelligence officers who say, please be careful of what you say on the phones as we are recording the stuff. So that's what he delivered at the International Forum at the University of Cambridge. And then the ruling dispensation has to say that Rahul Gandhi is maligning our country on foreign soil. So all these are political things. Not get into this. So Supreme Court seeks response from the UP government and the State Election Commission over the local body poll. So a bench led by Chief Justice of India listed the case out at 3 weeks. And so they have basically asked the UP state government and the State Election Commission on a plea by a group of 14 mayors to intervene in a case concerning the holding of the local body elections in the state. So the mayors, they said that they should be allowed to continue until the new municipal corporations they are in place. So Supreme Court eases the norm for selection of consumer court presidents and its members. So Supreme Court, it used its extraordinary powers under Article 142 to attract the younger talent to preside over the consumer courts by reducing the mandatory professional experience from 20 years to 10 years. And in a judgment, a bench of justices M.R. Shah and M.M. Sudresh, they also introduced written exams and viva voice to check the candidate's performance. So the selection process has been made easier, and the consumer commissions, they have the power of civil courts in many aspects. And the judgment noted that the government has proposed several amendments to the consumer protection qualification for the appointment, method of recruitment, procedure of appointment, term of office, all of this rules of 2020. So filling in the vacuum. So however, it did not want to wait for the law, and rather the court said that its judgment will fill the vacuum until the amendments were made in 2020 rules. So they directed that in future and hereinafter, a person having a bachelor's degree from a recognized university and who is a person of ability, integrity, and standing and having special knowledge and professional experience of not less than 10 years in consumer affairs, law, public affairs, administration, economics, commerce, industry, finance, management, engineering, technology, public health, medicine, they shall be treated as qualified for the appointment of the president and the members of the state commission. So the appointments to the district consumer commissions would also be made on the same criteria. So the border issue between India and China, it should be kept in proper place, says China. An external affairs minister, he highlighted the abnormal state of ties and need for peace on the line of actual control for return to normalcy. But Beijing wants to delink that subject from rest of the relations. Obviously, but you cannot completely de-alienate these things from other relations that India shares with China. So foreign ministers of Quad countries, they take aim at Russia and China. So the joint statement after the Quad foreign ministers meeting said that we underscored the need for a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, and the use or the threat of the use of the nuclear weapons is inadmissible. So India joined other Quad members in calling for a just and lasting peace in Ukraine and respect for rules-based order in South and East China Seas. In the first such statement by the grouping that is seen to criticize both Russia and China. So the statement that was released after the Quad meeting, it was met with sharp responses from both Russia and China also, so who called the Quad grouping as disruptive and exclusionary. So this is what is coming from Russia and China. So self-reliance is key in defense sector, says our CDS Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chauhan. He stressed on self-reliance in making the defense equipments while speaking of lessons for India from the war in Ukraine during a panel discussion. And every conflict has perspective. So it can include political, economic, and diplomatic perspectives. And we must be self-reliant in weapons production and not wait for the supplies from other nations. So that is the biggest takeaway, since obviously Ukraine is depending upon the arms and ammunitions being supplied by the NATO countries to it. So Kuno Park unsuitable to host all the 20 cheetahs and not enough prey, which is what the scientists believe. So Kuno National Park, which is there in Madhya Pradesh, it currently hosts 20 cheetahs brought in from Africa. That does not have enough prey to sustain all the animals. And while the Rajasthan government had offered to host some of the animals in relatively smaller but well-equipped Mukundra Tiger Reserve, political considerations had prevented it from happening because obviously there is Congress in Rajasthan. So because of that, it was not approved. So 8 cheetahs from Namibia and 12 from South Africa, they were transported to India between September and Feb. And as a part of an initiative to reintroduce the species to India, but the cheetah population, it had gone extinct in the early 1950s. So cheetah, it was extinct in India since 1950s, and this is a step in reintroducing the population in India. At present, there are about 20 cheetal, that is the cheetah's main prey, per square kilometer available at the Kuno National Park, which is a sharp decline from the nearly 60 cheetal per square kilometer that could be found in the park in 2014. So this at the most would sustain only 15 animals, and 5 or 2 have been shifted elsewhere. Unlike the Ganga Sagar and the Noora Dehi wildlife sanctuaries, which are there in Madhya Pradesh, which will take at least a year and investments worth rupees 750 crores to be made suitable for the cheetahs to stay. Mukuntara, which is there in Rajasthan, it can be immediately it can immediately accommodate the 5 cheetahs. So here you need to find out more about the National Tiger Conservation Authority also, its composition and its powers. So US blames Indian firms for cough syrup deaths in Gambia. So inquiries suggest contaminated medicines imported into Gambia that led to this acute kidney injury cluster among children, and CDC report says this. So this incident was reported, basically the medicines they were found contaminated with diethylene glycol, and ethylene glycol imported into the Gambia led to this acute kidney injury. So talking about India's claim of this thing, so the Indian government, however, maintains that when it collected control samples from the pharma companies of the same batch that was exported to Gambia, they found no contamination. And we had also requested that a team of Indian officials go to Gambia and to investigate the case, but we have been disallowed by Gambia from conducting the probe. So this is what India's stand is. And in case of Uzbekistan cough syrup deaths, Noida firm staff has been held. So Noida police arrested 3 employees of the pharmaceutical firms on charges of manufacturing and selling adulterated drugs in connection with the death of 18 children in Uzbekistan last year. And police said that the cough syrup was alleged to have led to the death of 18 children there. So as a basically regulator of the pharma sector in India, we have the Central Drug Standard Control Organization. So you need to find out more about it. And better infrastructure has put remote villages on tourist maps in India. So here in this case, we talk about the rural tourism and how it can be much more organic and at the same time environmentally sustainable thing, and it would be also obviously generating livelihood opportunities for the local communities of the rural areas. So that's how there are several benefits when we are talking about promoting rural tourism. So even our Prime Minister on Friday, he said that better infrastructure has put remote Indian villages on tourist maps, as has redevelopment of religious centers like we have Varanasi's Kashi Vishwanath temple. So when we talk about rural tourism, obviously religion can play a very important role. Religious centers like we can have Mathura and Varanasi's Kashi Vishwanath temples. So he was addressing post-budget webinar on the subject of developing tourism in mission mode in India, because this was also one of the most important themes in this year's union budget. So the center has also started a vibrant village scheme for the villages situated along the border, and he emphasized the need to support businesses such as homestays, small hotels, and restaurants. Said that India needs to think out of the box and plan ahead to take tourism to new heights. As parameters for the development of the tourist destination, he listed the potential of place, ease of traveling to the destination, and new ways to promote it. So World Bank's index on working women, India scores 74.4. So the laws affecting the Indian working woman's pay and pension do not provide for equality with Indian men, dragging India's score in a World Bank index on the life cycle of a working woman down to 74.4 out of a possible 100. So a score of 100 on the index means that women are on an equal standing with men on all the 8 indicators which are being measured under this index. And India scored higher than the 63.7 average South Asian region, though it was lower than Nepal, which had the region's highest score of 80.6. And for India, the index used the data on the laws applicable in Mumbai, which is viewed as the country's main business city. So, when it comes to constraints on freedom of movement, laws affecting women's decision to work, and constraints related to marriage, India gets a perfect score. So, however, India lags behind when it comes to laws affecting women's pay, pension, and work after having children, constraints on women starting and running a business, then gender differences in property and inheritance. So these are some of the negative areas we can say where we scored low. So US and South Korea, they announced the largest joint field exercises in 5 years. And apart from this, you can see in the picture long range B-1B bomber, which were flying over the Korean peninsula. So Nobel Peace Prize winner of 2022 has been jailed for 10 years. So a court in Belarus on Friday sentenced the Nobel Peace Prize winner and human rights activist Alice Bialitsky to 10 years in prison for financing the protest and other crimes in a case the rights group say it was politically motivated. So Russia is trying to be helpful to bring India and China closer. We never make friends against somebody, but we have excellent relation with India and excellent relation with China, says that the foreign minister of Russia. So Russia is interested in ensuring friendship between India and China, and Moscow is trying to be helpful in this regard. Coming from the Russian foreign minister, and so the Russian ministry also recollected that RIC, which includes Russia, India, and China trilateral, was created during the tenure of this personality when Russia took the initiative to bring the three sides together. So we met last year and we are going to meet again at the ministerial level this year also. So RIC is a regular trilateral that meets at the government and non-governmental levels covering exports and trade, technology, civil society, and media. So RIC is one platform where India and China are members, and then we have BRICS, which is another platform where India and China are there. Apart from this, other members include Russia, Brazil, and South Africa. So that is there, and then we also have India and China together in Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Also, including this is also important from the point of view of providing another place where India and China can cooperate together and look for common solutions. So we never engage in playing any country against any other country. This is what Russia believes and says. So Wagner chief says that Ukraine's Bakhmut is practically surrounded. So the head of the Russian mercenary group Wagner said that the group had practically encircled Bakhmut, which is an industrial city in eastern Ukraine that has seen the fiercest fighting of Moscow's invasion. So Russia is determined to seize Bakhmut, which is a now destroyed city once known for its sparkling wine, as part of its wider aim of capturing the entire Donetsk region of Ukraine. And then Biden and Scholz to weigh next steps for Ukraine. So the talks might delve into thorny issues, including Germany's fear over green subsidies by the US. And WHO urges countries to come clean on COVID origins intel after China's denial. So it urged all the countries to reveal what they know about the origins of COVID-19 following US claims of a Chinese lab leak and furious denials from Beijing regarding this. So the Wall of Fire Pyrotechnics display concludes the first public day of the Australian International Airshow Aerospace and Defence Expo at Avalon Airport in Geelong on Friday. So China also accuses US of attacking the companies after the export curbs. So we are seeing that there's more discomfort and more growing tensions between US and China, and then because of the Russia-Ukraine war, different groups are being formed. So services activity hit 12-year high in February. The purchasing managers index is signaling us services activity is hitting 12-year high. So favorable demand conditions, new business gains, they support the momentum in the sector. And Standard & Poor Global Survey of Services Firm shows this index rises to 59.4, marking the 19th straight monthly expansion. So we are performing nicely when it comes to the services sector, and even in case of the exports, so where we enjoy a surplus. So activity in the economy's crucial services sector expanded at the fastest rate in 12 years as per the S&P Global India Services PMI Business Activity Index. So joint best upturn in sales over the period we see, and input prices they rise at slowest pace in the 2.5 years. Output charge inflation softens. Then we have the demand resilience and competitive pricing is underpinned, and optimism ebbs to lowest in the 7 months. So the decision of some states to restart the old pension scheme will be decided. It would be decidedly a regressive move, and it will provide more privilege to government servants at the cost of larger public, a majority of which has no social safety. And this is from former RBI Governor Dr. D. Subbarao. So under OPS, employees they get a defined pension, and OPS was discontinued by the India government with effect from 1st April 2004. So that will be a decidedly regressive move both for our commitment to the fiscal responsibility and more broadly for the credibility of the reforms. Implementation of certain norms could perpetuate existing market dominance. So, Chief Economic Advisor V. Anant Nageswaram, he said that implementation of certain regulations by the regulators could perpetuate the existing market dominance, as he cited the data and the privacy norms in the technology space. So, he was delivering the keynote address at a conference organized by the Competition Commission of India. So, he emphasized that while competition drives innovation, there is also a distinction between competition and free markets. So he pointed out that competition agencies they must be mindful of the unintended consequences of their actions, and in the technology space regulators implement data and privacy norms and guarantee users complete access to their data. So in such situations users they can end up chasing only the large players since they place a great degree of trust in them. So this will ultimately lead to loss of competition across similar platforms, concentrating the power in the hands of few, which are going to be the larger players. So, what we do with a good intent, with public good in mind, can actually end up perpetuating the existing dominance. Coming to Financial Express. So yesterday we saw the stock market performing really nicely. Adani stocks increased by 16%. So we are kind of seeing rebound in the Adani stocks, but let's see whether it sustains or not is the most important thing. So most Asian markets, they end week on a high note. Sensex grew by 1.5%. So here, when we understand the manufacturing PMI and the services PMI, through this graph, you can see the blue one is for the services. So it is at 59.4, and you can see the gap between services and the manufacturing PMI. Manufacturing PMI, it is like not performing so nicely as of now, but the services PMI is definitely growing and it is breaking records. So many businesses, they are worried demand growth may slacken. So this is the main concern when we talk about the businesses, and this article is being includes the views of Jayant Verma, who is RBI MPC member. So the quarter three growth of 4.4% was in line with RBI's projections and therefore does not constitute a surprise. So the critical issue is about the growth in the upcoming financial year. And my concern is about how excessive tightening can be damaging to the growth in the coming year. So that is going to be the main concern. There's a need to distinguish free market and competition. So we have already gone through this article in the Hindu. So the benefits bestowed upon society as a product of the competitive forces, they are often conflated with the effects of the operations of the free market. So with the when we have free market, obviously the two main important forces are demand and supply, and with that there is obviously competition in case of free market situation. So that basically obviously benefits the consumers the most in terms of the lowest possible cost to them. So World Bank offers $1 billion to improve the India's health infrastructure, and it will be providing $1 billion support to India's flagship Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission to improve the public healthcare infrastructure across the country. So artificial intelligence will certainly transform the digital economy and grow the business economy in the country. We are launching a very comprehensive program which is called India AI program, and you will see more artificial intelligence use cases via the India stack. That is, it includes Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker, CoWIN, and much more things. So, technology advancements should be assessed not merely for the progress they enable, but also the social cost they exact when we are talking about the digital impacts of the newer technologies. So, some social risk related to the technology. So, the crisis of technology adoption seems to be that developing new technology is seen as the way to deal with the harm from the existing innovations. So human lives are intertwined with increasingly enmeshed and even dependent on technology. So often we assume that technology on the whole is a good thing, and this assumption holds that such technologies they are available and affordable by all and non-addictive as well. So we expect people to move with technology, and the larger social price we pay is because of the full implications and the impact of the technologies being adopted. So definitely there are some economic and commercial benefits that we are deriving through the technology. So yesterday we dealt about this thing, which is can see that red flags India's green certification under cloud easy certification of the forest produce makes it suspect a potential tool to bypass the global regulations. So we were seeing the timber wood that was being basically exported to other countries via India. It is we analyzed this thing yesterday. So exclusively for the hardened criminals, there's going to be a fourth jail in Delhi. So when we talk about the prison reforms, the obviously Indian prisons they are overcrowded, and then we have the problem of under trials and the process of providing bail. So all of that should be looked into when we are talking about the prison reforms and how we can even use the technology to ensure the safety of the prisons. So people shouldn't be afraid of their government. Governments should be afraid of their people. So we've already looked into this topic of Supreme Court appointing a panel, basically appointing a committee to appoint the election commissioners and the chief election commissioner. So the new procedure will go a long way in bringing about greater credibility and impartiality to the institution, and most importantly, this will ensure that the perception of neutrality of the election commission will be maintained. We know that the institution must not only be autonomous, but it will also appear to be so for the sake of public perception and the trust. So when we talk about the forming of the Constitution of India, so the women members they made their opinions known and they stood firm, and in the settings of the committees they wrote notes of dissent. And as author illustrates, so Amrit Kaur and Hansa Mehta wrote notes of dissent against the decisions that relegated the Uniform Civil Code to the non-justiciable rights, allowed the state to impose conscription for the compulsory military service at each stage when the committee made their official recommendations to the higher bodies of assembly. So definitely in this context, you should be knowing about the role of women when it comes to forming the Constitution of India. So judicial activism and excess. So Supreme Court order on election commission has undermined legislature and the executive. But again, at the same time, we saw that it has been a long pending thing that no law has been formulated on this thing. So it was the right time, because we cannot let the Election Commission of India lose its autonomy and independence, because that is very important for the functioning of healthy Indian democracy. So the Supreme Court of India, through its judgment, adopted the mantle of the Constitutional Assembly and effectively rewrote certain provisions of the Constitution. The court ordered that new rules be followed pertaining to the appointment of the election commissioner. As per these rules, the election commissioner is to be appointed upon the advice of the committee consisting of Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition, Chief Justice of India. So, justifying the same, the court stated that such rules are required to tackle the lacuna in the regulations pertaining to the subject. However, if we take a closer look at the reasoning of the court and the provisions dealing with the appointment of the election commissioners, it is evident that the court has acted in blatant disregard of the doctrine of the separation of powers. So, because of this, it is being felt that it's a case or it's an incidence of judicial activism. So, doctrine of separation of powers flows from the Constitution itself, which sought to establish three institutional organs, namely legislature, executive, and judiciary. So, the Constitution also designated the functions of each of these organs, wherein the legislature was to enact the law, executive was to enforce them, and judiciary was to adjudicate upon these laws. So, however, the same court which once recognized this doctrine as a part of the basic structure of the Constitution, it has turned it on its head. So, Constitution under Article 324 stipulates that the appointment of the chief election commissioners and other election commissioners shall, subject to any law, be made by the president. And hence, it is evident that the drafters of the Constitution envisioned that any laws on this aspect shall be drafted by the legislature, as it reflects the confidence of the public at large. So, pertinently, there was no mention whatsoever about the role of the judiciary in the appointment of either the election commissioner or the functioning of the election commission itself. So, the court appears to be on the wrong footing by stating that it is merely filling up the vacuums as an alternative system for appointments already exist. So, to conclude, as per the author of this article, he says that one wonders as to what extent will the court continue to intervene in the functions of the executive, and will the court draw for itself a Lakshman Rekha on this aspect or not. Although the intentions of the court while interfering in such matters may be noble, the same may have seemingly unintended consequences. Therefore, it might be suitable for the court to give judicial restraint on fair chance as well. So, how the forest certification works? Certification offers an audit system to authenticate the origin, legality, sustainability of the forest based products. And there are two major standards, FSC and PEFC. So, India is working on its own national standards. So, the large scale destruction of the forest has always been a concern for the environment, but with climate change, deforestation has become a critically sensitive issue globally in recent years. So, forests they absorb large amounts of carbon dioxide that is emitted in various economic activities, keeping a check on the global warming. And at the Glasgow climate meeting in 2021, more than 100 countries they took a pledge to stop and start reversing deforestation by 2030. So, several countries and corporates keen to present an environment friendly image, they now try to ensure that they avoid the consumption of any product that might be the result of deforestation or illegal logging. So, stopping deforestation does not mean that forests cannot be harvested in a sustainable manner for their products. So, what is important is that they need to be harvested in a sustainable manner, and you can't recklessly go on just deforestation. So, in fact, periodic harvesting of the trees is necessary and healthy for the forest, but trees have a lifespan beyond which they die and then they start to decay. So, again, the importance of sustainability is very important. So, forest certification in India. So, the forest certification industry has been operating in India for the last 15 years. Currently, forest in only one state, that is Uttar Pradesh, they are certified, and 41 divisions of the UP Forest Corporations are the PEFC certified, meaning that they are being managed according to the standards endorsed by PEFC. So these standards have been developed by the New Delhi-based non-profit network for certifications and conservation of forest. And some other states too, they obtained a certification, but subsequently they dropped out. And the Bhamragad Forest Division in Maharashtra was the first to obtain FSC certification for the forest management. Later, two divisions in Madhya Pradesh and one in Tripura also obtained the FSC certification. However, all of these have expired over time, and only UPFC extended its certification, but with PEFC. So many agroforestry projects, such as those run by ITC and several paper mills, to have forest management certification, and the forests here are meant for the captive use of the industry. So India-specific standards, India allows the export of only processed wood and not timber. In fact, the timber harvested from the Indian forest is not enough to meet the domestic demand for housing, furniture, and other products. The demand for wood in India is 150 to 170 million cubic meters annually, including 90 to 100 million cubic meters of the raw wood. So the rest goes mainly towards meeting the demand for paper and pulp. So India's forests, they contribute just about 5 million cubic meters of wood every year. Almost 85% of the demand for the wood and the wood products is met by trees outside the forest. So about 10% is imported. India's wood import bill is around rupees 50,000 to 60,000 crore per year. And the government said that the indigenous system of certifications will be simple, transparent, and easy to adopt, even by small farmers and the tree growers. So the benchmarks will adhere to internationally accepted norms, but will take into account India's national circumstances. The purpose is to make available sustainably grown and managed forest products in the domestic market. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining in, Sarkari. I hope you have understood all the topics and the key points that we discussed today. You'll be getting the PDF link in the description box. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share this video as much as possible. Thank you so much.